Ultimate Alliance 3 may not be the most popular game on the Nintendo Switch, but it's a game that I've had a lot of fun with for the past 2.5 years. At the beginning of 2021, I set a goal to obtain all single-player speedrun records this game had to offer. The adventure was a lot of fun, and I learned more than I could have ever initially anticipated. So naturally, I'm here to tell you about it. And just maybe, some of you will be inspired to try a speedrun of your own, whether it's for Ultimate Alliance 3 or any other game that you enjoy playing. As we get started, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Less than 5% of my viewers are subscribed, and I offer daily variety content. We're going to be exploring a whole bunch of new games this year, and I'd love it if you came along for the ride. No pressure, but it would mean a lot to me if you did. Going into 2021, I already held 2 of the 5 single-player speedrun records. The New Game Plus record, as well as the any % friendly no buffs record. Nobody had attempted the runs for the no buffs category on friendly or mighty difficulty up until that point, and initially I was confused with why this was the case. After all, the no buffs friendly run that I completed at the end of 2020 was only 20 minutes slower than the standard friendly run, so I assumed that the mighty difficulty wouldn't differ too much either. I was wrong. Something I should explain about the no buff runs is they impose a lot of restrictions on the standard way people play this game, or even the rest of the speedrun categories. There's a lot of ways to improve your odds of success when playing through this game. You can rank up characters' abilities to make them hit harder or make them more efficient. You can apply alliance enhancements through the skill tree that offer a wide range of benefits to the team. You can even equip ISO 8s, which offer a multitude of benefits to your champions, including everything from additional health, higher damage, increased resistance and defense, or extra energy points, just to name a few. We'll talk a bit more about these when we get to the New Game Plus runs. But when attempting a no buffs run, all of these improvements I just mentioned are banned, which isn't that big a deal on friendly difficulty because your opponents don't have as much health. But in the mighty difficulty, the health pools are higher and the opponents hit much harder. This was the first run I attempted in 2021. Now, to be fair, all I had to do was complete the run, and the record was guaranteed, since nobody had attempted it up until that point. But that didn't make it any easier. One of the fights that people, especially new players, routinely have difficulty with is the Doctor Strange fight, specifically the second half of the fight when he's imbued with Dormammu's power. In this part of the fight, his Bolts of Balthak ability become infused with flames that hit multiple times in quick succession, and if you get stuck in them, you can't roll out of them. Even in this run, I ended up losing and had to reset the boss fight. But at the end of the day, a free record is a free record. So if you have 4 hours of free time, you could be the new owner of this record, and I probably won't try to take it back because it's a long process. Next, I turned my attention to any % friendly. It took a few months to comb through the previous record held by FBI Michael Scarn, and I made a list of important points in the run to make enhancements and adjustments to the team. There's a few things that you need to pay attention to, such as which combat sections are optional, which encounters you need to intentionally fail and how to do so quickly, and so on. When all was said and done, I ended up shaving 5 minutes off the record. I applied a similar approach to the any % mighty run, and even though I missed most of the checklists that I had set up for the friendly difficulty, I still managed to save 1.5 minutes. If you've been keeping track, you'd think that I would have obtained all the records at this point. But I left out one important detail. A few players had been improving the New Game Plus strategies while my focus was elsewhere. A week before I claimed the any % friendly record, a new player named Ari the Art Freak uploaded a run that dethroned my time by over 2 minutes. But before we dive into that, let's take a step back and cover this category and its entire history since it's been the most in-depth. It all started in version 1.0.0. For anyone familiar with speedrunning in general, lots of games have lower times in their earliest versions because games often have glitches that can be exploited before they end up being patched by the developers, or in the case of much older games, they don't get patched at all. Ultimate Alliance 3 had a glitch that allowed you to fill out your entire roster with the same character by completing a specific sequence of failing solo Infinity Rift challenges. Basically, if you intentionally failed the rift, you would have the character automatically applied to the primary slot in your team roster. If you then moved that character to any other slot and failed the rift again, you would get a second character added to your team. Repeat that a few more times, and you could fill out the entire roster with the same character. There are only a few solo Infinity Rifts in the game, but the original record holder, Red Zeo Ranger, chose Captain America. His rift is a bit easier to fail even if you have the character up at a high level, because Ultimo can attack and take out a large portion of health in an instance. Additionally, his Super Soldier's ability applies an attack buff to the entire team. When the game was brand new, this was an excellent strategy, and the record went unchallenged for almost a full year. Despite the capabilities of Captain America, there was one large problem with using him across the entire team. He's slow. Now, to be fair, all characters have the same ground speed, but there are a few ways to move faster in this game. There's flight and web swinging, but the problem with those passive abilities is they consume energy points, which restricts your resources when you get into combat sequences. The best option for moving around the map quickly is teleportation. There's a small handful of characters that are able to do this, but nobody does this better than Nightcrawler. This was the first big adjustment that I wanted to make to improve on his run. The second big change was the inclusion of Thanos Infinite. This character was an added bonus for completing the epilogue story quest on Ultimate difficulty with the inclusion of the Shadow of Doom DLC. Thanos Infinite had one ability in particular that I found useful, and I've talked about it quite extensively in previous videos. The Soul Siphon ability draws all non-boss enemies into one central location while simultaneously replenishing Thanos' health and energy points when it's fully charged. I was particularly interested in the gravity aspect since there are several combat sections that revolve around defeating all enemies on the battlefield, and having them all in one central location would certainly speed that process along. And I was right. Between the quicker movement allowed by Nightcrawler and the ability to centralize opponents with Thanos, I was able to lower that record by almost 15 minutes on my first attempt in July of 2020. FBI Michael Scarn lowered that time by an additional 12 minutes in the beginning of September, and at the end of that month, I went back and lowered the time by an additional 15 minutes. Both of us had used similar strategies, relying on Nightcrawler and Thanos Infinite, but that seemed to be the best method of approaching this run. This was further confirmed in May of 2021 when the aforementioned Ari the Art Freak saved an extra minute and a half over my time by performing more consistently than either myself or FBI Michael Scarn had done up until that point. But that's where the craziest development in New Game Plus comes into play. An Ultimate Alliance 2 speedrunner had been watching these runs unfold over the past year, and he was able to notice something that the rest of us had missed. While I was busy trying to make good use of ISO 8s to save time in the Avengers Tower Ultimo fight, he was working out a strategy to decimate all boss fights throughout the entire game. I think it's best if I let him explain his thought process.
But okay, just to start it off so that I have this at the beginning of the VOD. Nightcrawler, I'm using the orange ISO. Extra damage in the level, so that when I use the turrets on like Ultimo, that's better. Damage done. Same thing as this one. And then, so I have 3 of those. And And then I have the Infinity Stones on this guy. Wow, look at that. On this, I have... Ooh, hello. I could upgrade that. Let me double check that, make sure I can upgrade it. Piercing by 18. Honestly, it's not going to make too big of a difference either way. Black Panther just kills people so fast. Gauge again. Increase damage to enemies. Increase damage to enemies. And then this is the big one. This is the one that I think is the biggest not route difference, but biggest difference between the other runs I've seen. Because this is just stupid. This is just a stupid kind of really good ISO, in my opinion. And you don't really see it until Juggernaut. I believe Juggernaut's the first one where I use it. Nope.
As Skull Spidey said, the key was this unique piece of Rainbow ISO 8 that drastically increased the attack of the wielder. Although this saps the health of the user, when playing in friendly difficulty, this is rarely an issue since the fights are over almost as quickly as they begin. So he set off on a casual attempt and lowered Ari's record by another 6 minutes. I was fortunate enough to witness the record fall in real time. It was truly an exciting development in the Ultimate Alliance 3 speedrun meta. I continued grinding my strategy for a few months, and eventually I found a way to decrease the Ultimo fight to 2 cycles instead of 3, as well as incorporate the strategy developed by Skull Spidey. I also made one final adjustment to the team. I added Dr. Doom to deal with some of the natural hazards that really slowed the game down, since he can double his damage output by summoning a loyal servant and using Spark of Genius to melt through those obstacles. That allowed me to drop the time to where it stands today, at 1 hour, 28 minutes, and 38 seconds. Nearly a full hour faster than the original record by Red Zeo Ranger. Will I continue to hold these records? I'll probably keep up on some of them, but for now, I'm content with having held these records concurrently through the end of the year. Who knows? Maybe you will be the next person to develop a strategy that revolutionizes the way this game is speedrun. I anxiously await the future of Ultimate Alliance 3 speedruns. There's no better time than now to get into speedrunning Ultimate Alliance 3. We're adding a couple of additional speedrun categories to include additions to the game since it has come out, particularly with that Shadow of Doom DLC, and you could have a very real chance to own one of those records yourself. Only time will tell who will hold those crowns. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Again, if you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed today's video, always feel free to drop that like. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.